Recording started. Okay, y'all. For those of you who have been watching iWorld's one and only episode and are wondering why we have mysteriously skipped from episode 1 to episode 3, it's because there was an episode 2. It was filmed last week, about 12-13 hours before the Apple conference. And we don't really feel like redoing it because a lot of what we went over just doesn't really have context anymore. So it's a lost show. We're sorry. At some future point we may cover some of that stuff, but I think it would be cruel at this point and in bad taste to just rehash antenna issues and other things like that. It's because Friday. Whether you love or hate Apple, you have to admit that Friday they did what they were supposed to. They addressed their responsibilities to their stockholders. They did what all the blogs and everyone was saying they should have done from the get-go. It's really the only thing they could have done, in my opinion, any better than what they did Friday was not be as condescending. I don't know. Have you watched the conference, or did you watch the live blogs or anything?
Yeah, what was it? There was someone, I forget where it was, but I did watch a little blog that had little transcripts. They would take pictures, so on and so forth. So yeah, I was there. Of course, they don't report every little nook and cranny, so I had gone back and watched the published keynote from the Apple website.
And depending which one you were watching, I mean, 3 out of the 4 of them, because I was watching a few of them, actually omitted that Steve Jobs actually did apologize. So the impression you were getting from watching a lot of the live blogs is that he didn't apologize at all. The thing that did...
Yeah, I got that. I'm actually... I have a video that will be on YouTube admitting my disgust with the press and actually asking Steve Jobs to apologize. I felt like, are we on Sesame Street? Do all the children now need to sit down in their chairs and let's be little good boys? I mean, for crying out loud.
Well, here's the thing. I think it would have been nice if Apple had, in my opinion, if Apple had apologized, only because their initial reaction to this was F the end user. It doesn't exist. If that had not been their initial reaction, Apple's Apple. I wouldn't expect them to apologize. It'd be nice, but I wouldn't expect it. It's more because of the way they initially handled this, and even here, they're coming out, we're fixing the problem, we're giving everyone free bumpers, which is what y'all say you want, but he spent 30 minutes of a 15-minute slideshow bombarding us with statistics and analysis, which was basically, this isn't an issue. Nobody's suffering it. All phones do it.
The press, I disagreed with Apple going after RIM and...
Well, it's like, we covered it in PC Mac. I didn't know this, but RIM was very pissed at that.
Well, yeah, I do go over a lot of that. In my video, my opinion there was Apple should have stayed away from going after other competitors. I just don't like the whole "are you going to apologize" type thing. I mean, please get over it. The emails initially that came out, which Apple will say, oh, well, it wasn't Steve Jobs. We know it came from Apple. Nonetheless, the first emails were coming out of the gate very harsh in terms of just very dismissive. But they in themselves, I think it was the later emails, they were basically saying, okay, we're taking a look at it, stay tuned. For me, that was fair enough. Okay, we're staying tuned, you got a little emotional, I don't need some apology from this. It's like, I think about all the technical grief that I've lived through since the early 90s up until now, that I'd like a ton of apologies then, from a crap load of software vendors and a crap load of hardware vendors. But I don't expect, it's just, having bugs and errors and things like that is just a natural thing in tech, and unlike the iPhone 3G, which I feel is a far worse problem than what the iPhone 4 had. I owned iPhone 3G. it didn't have necessarily holding it wrong. It would just drop calls no matter what the bar said. Period. It did. It just I could barely hold a conversation. It was very frustrating. And there were plenty of headlines, from USA Today to the New York Times and all of that. And there's no bumpers given then, no apologies, and I guarantee you that situation was far worse than with the iPhone 4.
I think what turned the Go ahead.
Calls. Well, I was just saying, people were complaining about just drop calls, and this time around, yeah, the emails is what started it all. Had those emails not come out, this would have been at the same level as the iPhone 3G launch.
I'm not even sure it's the emails. I think the two things that turned this whole issue into something that just went viral and feathered through the whole internet were two things, a combination of two things. One, the leaked memos. When it was known that Apple Care was being told, basically to sidestep this issue. And on the same token, it was also known that they had given free bumpers directly related to this issue to a corporate client. It's like that was one of those things. This doesn't jive right. It's like it doesn't, son. That combined with the fact that rather than their initial reaction being, well, we'll look into it and see if anything, it was more taking the stance that combined with the emails and the other stuff and the posting for an antenna engineer. It was one of those, it's just, their initial reaction should have been basically if somebody went and complained enough about it, because if this problem really is as small as they're saying, the way they made it look in this press conference was it's less than 1 in 100. It's between 1 in 200 and 1 in 100 people suffering the problem.
Well, if we're going by their numbers, which is 0.55%, that leads to several hundred complaints a day so far. If 3 million have been sold.
Well,
so,
somebody was telling me the other day, I can't verify this, that some of those 3 million being counted are actually en route, which means people haven't actually got them yet. Or as of Friday, that was the case.
All right. Well, I mean, the thing, however the numbers are, see, I always say that the numbers, why go off of them? That assumes that every customer is going to complain. Every customer is going to want to return them. No, most of the time.
Well, no, and especially since the bumper fixed this, and initially in the first 3 days, before they started doing some PR on this, it was cheaper to buy a bumper than to return the iPhone. Because the 10% restock fee was more than the $30 bumper. So, it's honestly, you were better off to buy a bumper. I'm not sure a resale statistic accurately reflects that.
Right. But I wanted to go back to how it got viral, though. I know your points about the memo. The thing of it is that Apple, let's say leading up to these memos, it had really already started going viral because everybody was shocked that Steve Jobs himself had said, hold it, some other way. That, of course, is a domino effect that just scales. Then everything else just builds upon that, because if that email didn't occur, then everything else, Apple wouldn't have had to have memos talking about Apple Care, because it would have just stayed in the normal tech blogosphere, just like every other bug and error. And okay, so there's another iPhone.
Well, no, and it's like you're saying with the 3GS and all that stuff. It's like, this is not the first product Apple's put out that has these glitches. This is, I think, the first time Apple or Steve Jobs has officially, in the public eye, made an announcement, well, you should be doing it the Apple way. You should be doing it the way I do it.
Right.